Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really difficult subject, a truly complex one. We're doing a deep dive into the 2012 mass shooting at the Century 16 Theater in Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic.
Our sources really detail the attack itself, the legal battles that followed, and honestly, the ripples that are still felt today in debates about safety, mental health, media.
That's a lot to unpack.
So let's set the scene. We're talking July 2012, just after midnight.
Right, during that midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. Hugely anticipated movie.
And the immediate numbers were just staggering.
They really were. 12 people killed instantly, and tragically that number includes an unborn baby. 70 others injured, 58 of those from gunfire. It was a massive event in terms of casualties at the time.
Let's get into the specifics of the attack itself, the planning involved. The shooter, James Holmes, 24 years old. He first entered Theater 9 normally.
Yeah, just bought a ticket, went in like everyone else.
But then, about 20 minutes into the film,
He slipped out, used an emergency exit, and crucially, he propped it open.
and that door led where?
To a sort of secluded back parking lot area, not heavily used. That's where he'd apparently staged his gear.
So he returns later, about 30 minutes into the movie.
That's right. And this time he's completely changed. Full tactical gear.
What did that involve?
A load-bearing vest, ballistic helmet, bullet-resistant leggings, a gas mask, the works. And kind of a chilling detail, he was wearing headphones.
Headphones.
Yeah, reportedly playing loud techno music, a track called Becoming Insane. Almost like he was trying to, insulate himself from what was about to happen.
And the reaction inside the theater, this is just heartbreaking. People didn't immediately see him as a threat.
No, not at all. The accounts describe people thinking it was maybe a costume, someone pulling a prank.
Or even like a publicity stunt for the movie premiere.
Exactly. That initial confusion, it gave him time. Terrible, critical time.
And then the attack began. How?
He started with tear gas, threw canisters into the crowd.
Causing immediate chaos, I imagine.
Total chaos. Smoke, panic, people couldn't see, trying to get out blindly. And then he started shooting.
With what kind of weapons?
He had quite an arsenal. A Glock handgun, a Remington shotgun, and the main weapon, an M&P-15 Sport semi-automatic rifle.
And that rifle? It had a high-capacity magazine.
A huge one. A 100-round drum magazine.
But I read that it malfunctioned.
It did, and that's a key point. It jammed. If it hadn't, well, the death toll could have been even worse, considerably worse.
How many shots did he actually fire in total?
The count is 76. 6 from the shotgun, 65 from the rifle before it jammed, and 5 from the handgun.
And the police response?
Amazingly fast. Officers were on scene within 90 seconds of the first calls.
90 seconds? That's incredible.
It really is, but the scene they found was overwhelming. So many injured.
And getting help to them was difficult.
Extremely. The parking lot was jammed, chaotic. Ambulances were struggling to get close. So the police officers themselves, they started transporting victims.
In their squad cars.
Yeah. Loading critically injured people into their cars and rushing them straight to the hospital, acting as first responders in transport.
What about the shooter? How was he caught?
He was actually arrested pretty quickly, just behind the theater near his car, around 12:45 a.m., so maybe 7 minutes after the shooting started.
Did he resist?
No, apparently not. Reports described him as calm and disconnected, just surrendered.
But the horror wasn't quite over, was it? There was the issue with his apartment.
Right. That was the next phase. About 5 miles away, investigators discovered his apartment was elaborately booby-trapped.
Booby-trapped how?
Over 30 homemade grenades filled with explosive material and wired to a control box. And there were containers with at least 30 gallons of gasoline rigged to ignite.
Good grief. So the intention was...
Clearly, if anyone tried to enter, police, first responders, anyone, it would trigger a massive explosion and fire. It just showed this chilling level of premeditation, cold, calculated planning. That became really central later on.
Let's shift focus now, if we can, to the human cost. The victims.
It's important we remember them. 12 people lost their lives.
Including a very young child.
Yes, 6-year-old Veronica Moser-Sullivan. Just devastating. And the range of ages was broad.
There was also one victim, Jessica Gowie. Her story is uniquely tragic.
It really is. She had actually survived another mass shooting just a month earlier in Toronto. To survive that, and then, it's unthinkable.
And the survivors. The injuries were severe, life-altering for many.
Absolutely. You mentioned Veronica's mother, Ashley Moser. She was critically injured, paralyzed, and also tragically lost her unborn child as a result of the shooting.
And Caleb Medley?
Caleb Medley sustained serious brain damage. He was the last victim to be discharged from the hospital. He was left unable to speak, with significant movement impairment. These are lifelong impacts.
Was there community support for the victims?
Yes, thankfully, that was a positive aspect. Hospitals stepped up, limiting or even forgiving medical bills, and the Aurora Victim Relief Fund raised and distributed significant funds, like $220,000 for each family of the deceased.
That immediate support then shifted towards legal action, specifically against the theater chain, Cinemark.
Right. Several victims and families filed civil lawsuits.
The argument being negligence, that Cinemark should have had better security.
Essentially, yes. Particularly for a high-profile midnight premiere, they argued security was inadequate.
How did Cinemark respond to that?
Their main defense was that this was an unforeseeable criminal act, a targeted, unpredictable attack by a third party.
But was it truly unforeseeable? I remember reading about a judge's comment early on.
That's a fascinating point. One judge, in an early ruling, actually noted that perhaps mass shootings in theaters were becoming frequent enough, maybe likely enough, to be a foreseeable next step. It really shows the legal system grappling with this terrible new reality.
So a judge hinted it might be foreseeable, but what did the jury decide in the civil case?
The jury, in the end, sided with Cinemark. They found the theater chain was not legally liable.
Why not? If the risk was potentially foreseeable.
The bar for proving negligence is very high. The jury likely felt that even with reasonable security, preventing this specific kind of planned tactical assault would have been impossible. They determined Cinemark wasn't liable to any degree.
Did Cinemark pursue legal fees from the victims after winning?
They initially sought reimbursement, which caused quite a bit of outcry, but they later dropped that request, which was, probably the right thing to do given the circumstances, a small relief for those families.
Okay, so the civil liability question was settled. Then came the criminal trial against Holmes himself, April to August 2015.
Right, and this trial hinged entirely on one thing: his mental state.
He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
Correct. The defense didn't dispute that he was the shooter. Their entire argument was that he was suffering from severe schizophrenia, detached from reality, and legally insane at the time of the attack. Never in control of his right mind, as they put it.
And the prosecution?
They focused on the planning, the gear, the booty traps, the exit strategy. They argued this showed clear premeditation and that his motive was a desire for fame or infamy.
There was a key piece of evidence debated heavily, a notebook.
Ah, yes, the notebook. He mailed it to his university psychiatrist right before the shooting.
What was in it?
Detailed attack plans, drawings, writings. The prosecution used it as proof of calculated planning.
But the defense saw it differently.
Completely. They argued the notebook's bizarre contents were actually evidence of his severe mental illness, a window into a fractured mind. So these same piece of evidence used for opposite arguments.
How did the psychiatric experts weigh in? This must have been complex for the jury.
Extremely complex. Multiple psychiatrists evaluated him. They agreed he was seriously mentally ill. Diagnoses included things like schizotypal personality disorder, schizoaffective disorder.
But being mentally ill isn't the same as being legally insane.
Right. Exactly. That's the crucial legal distinction you have to grasp. To be found not guilty by reason of insanity, the defense typically needs to show the person didn't understand their actions were wrong.
And the experts concluded.
Despite the confirmed severe mental illness, the court-appointed psychiatrists concluded he was legally sane. They believed he understood the difference between right and wrong and could form intent.
Was there specific testimony supporting that?
Yes. For instance, he reportedly told one doctor he deliberately chose a PG-13 movie, not an R-rated one, trying to avoid targeting children, and that he felt remorse after learning children were among the victims. This suggested an awareness of his actions and their consequences.
So the jury had to decide what was the verdict.
They found him guilty. Guilty on all counts. 24 counts of first-degree murder, 2 for each victim, and 140 counts of attempted first-degree murder for the injured.
Then came sentencing. Was the death penalty on the table?
It was. The prosecution sought it. But the mental health issue came back into play decisively here. For a death sentence, the jury's decision had to be unanimous. But they deadlocked, because at least one juror refused to vote for death, specifically citing Holmes's documented mental health problems as a mitigating factor. Just one holdout was enough.
So, no death penalty. What was the final sentence?
12 consecutive life sentences, one for each murder victim, with absolutely no possibility of parole. plus an additional 3,318 years for the attempted murder counts and other charges, essentially ensuring he would die in prison.
Let's look at the wider impact now. How did society react immediately afterwards, particularly regarding guns?
It was complex and somewhat contradictory, actually. In Colorado, right after the shooting, gun sales surged
Increased.
massively. Background checks jumped 43% in that first week. And sales rose in other states, too. It immediately poured fuel on the fire of the gun control debate, especially around semi-automatic rifles and high-capacity magazines like the one he used.
Did it actually change public opinion on gun laws in the long run?
Interestingly, perhaps not as much as you'd expect. A Pew Research survey later found that, overall, American views on gun laws didn't significantly shift after Aurora. It seems these events often intensify existing beliefs rather than changing minds on a large scale.
What about Hollywood's reaction, given the setting was a movie premiere?
The response there was swift. Warner Bros. Canceled the Paris premiere and other international events for The Dark Knight Rises.
Did they release box office numbers right away?
No, they took the unusual step of delaying the release of the initial box office figures out of respect for the victims and the situation. Director Christopher Nolan issued a statement calling the attacks savage and devastating.
Was there any impact on other films?
Yes, quite notably. Another Warner Bros. Film, Gangster Squad, was due out soon after. Its trailer, and indeed the film itself, featured a scene with characters shooting automatic weapons through a movie screen into the audience.
Oh.
Yeah. They pulled the trailer immediately and actually went back and completely reshot that entire sequence to remove the movie theater shooting element. It showed a real sensitivity, perhaps a new self-consciousness, about depicting that kind of violence.
Another significant outcome was the No Notoriety campaign. Tell us about that.
That was started by Tom and Karen Teeves, the parents of victim Alexander Teeves. It's a powerful movement, urging the media to limit using the shooter's name and photograph.
Why? What's the reasoning?
The belief is that excessive media coverage, focusing on the perpetrator, can inadvertently glorify them and potentially inspire copycat attacks by others seeking similar infamy. It raises really important ethical questions for journalism.
What happened to the theater itself, the Century 16?
It remained closed for about 6 months. Cinemark then renovated it and reopened it in January 2013.
Was that controversial?
Yes. Some victims' families were critical of the decision to reopen. The specific auditorium, Theater 9, where the shooting happened, was actually remodeled, combined with an adjacent room to create a new, larger XD theater.
Is there a permanent memorial now?
Yes, eventually.
Yeah.
In 2018, a memorial called Ascension was dedicated near the Aurora Municipal Center. It features 83 abstract sculpted birds. 13 of them are translucent, representing the 12 deceased victims plus the unborn child.
And the fear of copycats? Was that realized?
Sadly, the concern raised by the No Notoriety campaign seems valid. Our sources mention perpetrators in a later plot in Oklahoma who explicitly told investigators they wanted to outdo Aurora and Columbine. The notoriety factor seems real.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive reveals a tragedy marked by meticulous planning intertwined with severe mental illness.
Absolutely. And a legal process that ultimately found criminal accountability despite that illness. The trial really forced a confrontation with how the justice system handles perpetrators who are clearly unwell but are still deemed legally sane and capable of intent.
The sentence ensured he'd never be free, but the questions linger.
They do. How do we prevent something like this?
Exactly. The trial focused so heavily on proving he was mentally ill but legally responsible. So thinking forward, where should the focus be? Is it primarily about reforming mental health care systems? Is it about the media's role, like the no notoriety debate suggests? Or is it about refining legal standards for assessing risk and foreseeability?
It's likely a combination of all those things, isn't it? There's no single answer. It's a challenge that involves mental health professionals, law enforcement, the legal system, the media, and honestly, all of us as a society. And it's a challenge we're still grappling with today.
Subscribe for more.